Get on that there was one American soldier. Start there. There was one American soldier.
Okay.
It's going. So you can talk.
There was actually one single American soldier who liberated us. He stood up on a pile of something with a chewing gum, with a submachine gun under his arm, and that was that. And then the French officers came and opened the gates and tried to convince us that we can go out. We can go outside the gate. And then the problem starts. Where do you go to? Then I turned around and in this great excitement, and I saw the American tanks nearby, and I actually started saying hello. I tried talking English to him, and I found that for about an hour I could not speak. I thought that I had a sort of minor accident or a cerebral hemorrhage or something. I couldn't speak for an hour or two. The French Jewish officers came and said, come into town, we have prepared some food for you. And God knows where from, they actually did in their quarters where they were prisoners of war. They broke into a sugar factory, German sugar factory. They broke into all sorts of food supply places, and they actually prepared food. All of a sudden, whilst I was standing next to this, or nearby, near this American soldier, I saw a figure running. It was one of the SS officers who took off his rank, threw away everything, and apparently he couldn't hide, and he was running. And I was trying to talk to him, and in this great excitement, I couldn't talk at all. And I was just pointing, and he was shot. And he was shot dead. We couldn't take the step of walking past the gate. Finally, we started going down the streets. There were white flags in all sorts of windows. And we came across some tanks parked in the street. And it was also extremely difficult to walk. We were terribly, terribly weak. And on it there was a reddish-haired boy with a talit waving at us. He realized he knew we were Jewish girls.
An American?
An American soldier. And these boys moved away, and then others came. Later on, a boy came out, so this was a few days later, and he said, "If I have some macaroons from home, from my mother, she baked, take it, you haven't eaten any home-baked things."
Well, where were you taken care of then?
Well, we went in, which wasn't actually a very good thing to do, because these Jewish officers were treated, of course, much better than we were. I mean, they were treated pretty badly, but they weren't as starved as we did. So very many people died after this so-called feast. I mean, I don't know, it was bread and something, because we couldn't really absorb food, and also it was terribly painful to eat. I mean, this was a thing we had to get used to. And also,
did you weigh yourself?
There was nowhere to weigh ourselves. I certainly was a lot slimmer than today.
What concerted effort, what professional effort was there made to take care of you girls? Were you the ones that went to Sweden, to that convalescent camp?
No, actually, some of my friends went to Sweden. I mean, part of my transport was taken to a different place, and they landed up in Sweden. They were even worse off than we. But from the people who really took charge of us was the American Army, and they were magnificent. I have no words for it. Most of them, of course, were non-Jews.
May I ask you something? You said before on your tape that you tried speaking English. Where did you learn English?
At home,
At home.
as a child.
I'm sorry.
We have learned several languages, of course.
So where were you actually taken? I mean, by a planned effort. There was an effort.
There was straight away. We were taken over by an American group. I don't know if it was a medical group or it was what they called themselves. We were supplied with food, and within, I think, 36 hours. There was a very large aerodrome and flying school, German flying school nearby in the same town, at the other end of the town. I mean, we were out of town, of course, our camp. And that was either emptied or they were taking prisoners. I don't know what happened, but anyway, that was cleaned up. And we were taken over there, disinfected. And there, we straight away had medical attention. Every one of us was examined. We were looked after beautifully, and sort of lighter food cooked, special food cooked for us. And the understanding was shattering, because after all, these were people who haven't been through hell, and the understanding that which they handled us was really tremendous.
All right, now let me just ask you a couple of things before we go any further. How many of your family survived?
One sister.
Just one sister. Was she in Auschwitz too?
She was in Auschwitz, but at the time when I was taken to this bulb factory, she also volunteered for it, but she wasn't included in this transport.
So she remained and was liberated in Auschwitz?
No, she remained in Auschwitz, and she left Auschwitz about 2 or 3 weeks later with another group.
To where?
She went to a different place in Germany. Actually, she stayed in Poland, and she was liberated much earlier. She was liberated about end of January.
Now that's what I want to ask you. I have read about groups of Jews being driven through villages where toward evening, where they could see lights on in houses and German families comfortably settled at their meals. Did you actually,
Oh, yes.
You were seen by Germans living their day-to-day life. They saw you. For instance, when you went to work, were you driven in groups?
We had to walk. When we went to work, for instance, in Reichenbach, which is the other Silesia. Silesia. We lived in a camp which they call the sports school, and they just had these funny names for
country
things.
clubs.
Yes. And we had to walk through woods to this Telefunken factory, which is the AEG factory today. We went a large part of the way, or some part of the way, then we went through the town.
Through the town.
We went early in the morning. It must have been, I don't know, 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock. I had no watch, so it was still dark in the evening. But there were shifts coming and going. There were people,
Who saw you?
hundreds of people who were working in the
Germans.
factory, Germans, so that
They could see you
they
without
could
your
see
hair.
us.
And when you walked through the towns, you were driven by stormtroopers. You had stormtroopers.
We were, of course, we always had stormtroopers with us. Not only were we seen, but we got a shower of stones
You did.
by children.
Oh.
We were, we definitely were identified as Jews.
And as Jews they had been deprived of their liberty and were
Well,
being
that was pretty obvious.
slave-driven. Well, that gives the lie to that. Tell me, you talked about Kastner, and there's no need to go into that because I'm sure that trial has been very well documented. Did you attend the sessions of his trial in Israel?
No, it was too near to me.
I see. But now you mentioned something. I understand his role now.
Hamdi, did you participate in any trials in Israel?
I sat in on, my husband gave evidence at the Eichmann trial as a doctor in the British Army who has seen Bergen-Belsen, and he has taken photographs there. And I sat in on one of the closed sessions, which was showing the film of Auschwitz, where we had to identify certain things, which was actually taken by the Germans. They were so sure of their victory that this was their pride and joy to take these photographs of Auschwitz.
These were films that were...
Which were found after the war.
They usually make the part of a documentary of the Holocaust, and Rabbi Laninsky told me the Germans took pictures.
Yes,
absolutely.
definitely.
In the trial, people could identify themselves in certain pictures, which the Germans did.
Now, you said something else about, you told us what he did, what Kastner did, and how he was able to take people out of Bergen-Belsen. Who did you say left and descended from the sky? The name was...
Kastner. K-S-T-N-E-R.
Yes. No, not Kastner.
No, there was a
You
woman.
said something else about Hannah
Senesh.
Now, who was that?
Well, she was a Hungarian girl who left Hungary early on in the, I don't know the exact date, and a great Zionist who was trained in Palestine as it was then, and was parachuted in by the Allies, I suppose it was the British, who parachuted her in, and her idea was to organize underground work, revolt, and also to try and save some of the Hungarian Jews, but mainly to organize the revolt against the Germans. Her parents were still in Hungary, and in fact her mother is living today in Israel. She was caught, she was apparently denounced because people were waiting for her as she was parachuted down, and she was finally shot straight away within a few days.
I see. Now, well, then go ahead. So after you were in this airdrome, where did you go then?
Well, we stayed there for some time, and it was sort of the German prisoners of war had to clean our place and prepare it, and under American guard. That was the place where I found for the first time really what we were really doing, that we were preparing bulbs for receiving sets in airplanes, where we found some airplanes, some debris, and that's where I found my original bulb.
Oh, that's interesting.
Then the Russians were coming near. That actually falls in the Russian zone of Germany, that is Eastern Germany today. And as they were coming, as we were sure that they were taking over as soon as we heard about it, of course we didn't want to stay there because my idea was straight away to come to Palestine as soon as I could. I realized that I definitely wouldn't go home because I had nobody to look forward to. I knew that the only possible person who would have stayed alive at all was my older sister, and it was so. And so we went to Hanover, which was again organized by the American Army. We got transportation from them, and in a sort of big truck we were driven to Hanover, which was in the American zone. Which was actually, Hanover was the sort of seat of the American, British, and French government.
Then when did you get to Israel?
Oh, from there I stayed in Germany actually for a year, because in August that year I met my husband.
Pardon me, you also said before we started that you became a partisan after that. Did you?
No.
No, it was...
No, but that was the end of the war.
Yeah,
45 was the end of the war.
Where did you meet your husband?
I met him by chance in Germany.
Is your husband
He was a British.
Yes, he was in the British Army, doctor in the British Army.
You were already a doctor at that time.
Yes, he was serving in the British Army. And he was actually looking around to find someone, he had some connection, someone asked him to find out something about our family, if anybody was left alive. And he just walked in, and I quite by chance happened to arrive to that spot by train. The train broke down in that place, so I had to go and wait there in that town. And as two of my friends were with me and we had to wait around, so we said, okay, let's go and find out if there are any Jews around here. Perhaps we find some friends or someone. So we asked around, and there was a small camp where people lived sort of after the war. And I asked around, and sure enough, there was a boy from my town, but he wasn't there at the time. And somebody said, well, we'll take you to his place, and he arrived, and we recognized each other, and we talked. We said, well, first come and eat. And half an hour later, my husband came in and asked if somebody knew something about this family.
The Fuchs family.
The Fuchs family.
Were you related in some way?
Now, what
No,
made
not
you...
at all.
How did you know about the...
I had a governess when I was 7 years old, 8 years old, from Germany. And she went back to Germany to see about her family when Hitler came and things got bad. And then finally she got out of Germany, she went to England.
She was a Jewish
She was a
governess.
Jewish girl. And she went to England, and by chance she worked for my sister-in-law.
For Mark's
For Mark's
sister,
brother's wife.
wife.
And she asked
always a
him
connection.
after the war. She knew that he was in Germany, and she asked him if he would sort of ask around if anyone was alive. So he came in and he said, "Is anybody here from Najbaras, from my town?" And they straight away said to this boy, pointed to this boy. And he said, "Yes, I'm from that town." He said, "Well, do you know anything about the Fuchs family? Is anybody alive from there?" And he said, "Oh yes, here is one of the girls."
Fate.
And that was it.
When were you married? Were you married shortly after that?
Well, we waited till, first of all, he had to get permission in order to marry. I was enemy alien. So permission took a long time to come through. And I stayed in Germany until he was demobilized. And then we had to be married, sort of, it was an army marriage, which of course wasn't binding for us at all. So that I could get my British passport. And then we went back to England and the family prepared the wedding, and 2 weeks later we were married in London.
Now, Adina's been telling me a little bit about what you're doing in Israel now, in helping people stay in those territories, squatting.
It's not squatting, and I'm not helping people stay in the territories, I'm staying in the territories.
Oh, you're doing it.
First of all, one thing is sure, it's in Israel, a Jew cannot squat.
No.
Because we've got, right, it is our land, we've got the oldest book of deeds that exists in this world, where the Almighty promised it to Abraham. And if we have anything to, if it's our right to be in Tel Aviv, it's certainly much more our right to be where we are now.
Now, where
in
exactly
Samaria. We are in Samaria, near Nablus, which is around about the spot where God promised it to Abraham that this land is going to belong to you.
In other words, you've left your comfortable home in Tel Aviv and you've set up living quarters there?
Well, I wouldn't say set up living quarters. We live, as everybody who is there, in great luxury at the moment already, because it's caravan.
Oh.
24 square meters, big or small.
Like a trailer.
Like a
caravan
is
is
a
a
trailer. It is a trailer.
And this organization is called?
This organization is called Gush Emonim, which really means people who belong, we believe in faith. I mean, this is a faith movement, that we have faith in Israel, faith in the Jewish people, and faith that this is our
What
land.
does Gush mean? Amunim means
Group.
faith.
It's a group.
Group. Gush is a group.
Yes.
What class of people are doing it? Are there professional people doing it?
Mainly professional
Many
people.
doctors like your husband?
Doctors, physicists,
And
professors.
the common people, too.
We are the common people. These are the people of Israel.
What did you do, just close your house in Tel
We
Aviv?
closed it.
Just closed your house.
Not completely. My maid still went into cleaning. My husband went into
Shower.
and changed clothes because he couldn't go in those muddy clothes to work. I sent my clothes back to have it washed. We were, especially last year, living under very, very primitive conditions without running water and sanitary facilities sort of in our room. Last year we lived actually in a wooden shack, 3 by 3.5.
Now tell me, do you see any progress because of your efforts?
Oh, tremendous progress.
Now how?
First of all, terrific progress, or I can't say progress, I would call it recapturing Zionistic values, which unfortunately lately have started disappearing in Israel. And also by explaining to people and bringing it home to them in Israel that unless we get back to basic values, God forbid we can lose our land.
Are you in any danger while you're staying where you are?
Yes, I would say yes. But danger, we are in danger anywhere in
Anywhere
Israel.
in Israel.
I mean, if I wouldn't want to be in danger, and if I would want to be quite logical about it, I would pack my things and take my 3 children and daughters-in-law and son-in-law and my 3 grandchildren and leave the country. But as that is my country, and I feel that that is where I want to put down my roots, I'm willing to take it.
When did you emigrate to Israel?
In January 1951.
You lived in England for 4
We lived in England for less than 5 years.
And this was your
4.5 years.
husband's and yours dream to always be in to
Oh,
go to
definitely.
Israel.
We decided actually before we were married that we give ourselves 5 years just to collect the minimum something that we can start life with.
in Israel.
I don't have to tell you that I didn't have even a pair of shoes on my feet.
That's
When we
another thing.
started
How
life-
did when you were liberated? What did, in other words, once you left and you were going, you weren't working. What did you do? In other words, just even to get a train or plane to England.
Well, I tell you something. First of all, the joint, of course, became very, very active straight away, and they started giving out clothes and so on. I was a little bit crazy at that time, and my craze was that I would not accept anything from anybody. So I went into a German shop, and I said, I'm taking a pair of shoes, clothes, just enough for myself. We'll give it to you. I said, oh no, you are not giving me anything that I need, and I don't want more than what I can wear. I am taking because you have taken away everything from me, and I would not accept anything from you. At that time, the only thing that I could find there were football boots. But in any case, I couldn't have put on anything else because my feet were so enormously swollen up and full of wounds and so on. So I had to wrap it up in all sorts of rags and cotton wool I didn't have, because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to wear. After that, I think some Italian officers gave me some very nice Italian boots, about 6 sizes larger than I wear, 7 sizes larger. But again, I couldn't have worn ordinary shoes yet because actually that's how I met my husband. I think that was the charm thing, those enormous Italian boots.
Tell me, was the general tenor around Germany then contrition and sorrow and wanting to make up for you? You say you went into a German shop and they said they'd give you anything you wanted?
Not at all.
They were
There
the
was
same?
no sorrow about it. There was only sorrow about one thing.
The
They
losing
lost
the
the
war.
war. That was the only sorrow about it. Of course, I haven't met a German who had heard
Who
or
hasn't
seen it,
apologized.
or who has heard about it. They did not know anything about it. I started working as soon as I could sort of stand on my feet. I started working as interpreter, and so I never accepted anything that was sent by the Joint or by any other organization. This was my pet craze, that whatever I had, even if I was in rags, it was sort of mine, or somehow I knitted things. I was a very good knitter, so I knitted all night, and for that I would swap. In any case, there were no shops in Germany where you could buy things. There was no money. Instead of money, you used coffee or cigarettes.
Bribery.
No,
It wasn't even bribery.
That was the currency.
exchange.
That was the exchange.
Did your family, looking up a little ahead, did you ever get any reparations?
I got reparations last year. If you can call it reparations, if you can do that. I mean,
I know.
which is not for property
I
or
know.
for anything else. It's pure minimal, absolute minimal reparations.
And were you ever able to trace down anything about your parents, where they were, or your family?
I don't have to trace it down because we know,
You know what
and it
happened?
has been proved, that Mengele, Dr. Mengele, the famous German doctor, rather infamous, by the movement of his thumb, used to condemn people to death. And as I was sent to one side and my family was on another side, I
That
know
was
what
the
happened to
thought.
them. I actually tried to run back several times. Excuse me. Because I said I wanted to die with my family. And I was picked out each time by different SS and pulled out and put to the other side.
What did you say that when Dr. Teller, or Rabbi Teller met these people, he says they're the ones I've been reading
Well,
about?
he mentioned that Dr. Chayen was always in the papers as a troubleshooter, as an organizer of this Gush Amunim. You know, this goes to the present.
I see. Did you, your husband mentioned some pictures, which I'm going to ask about later, but we have just been given some pictures that a girl found when she went back to her house near Warsaw. Did you ever get back to your home?
No, I didn't. Never.
Have you ever met any of the people that were with you in Auschwitz?
Yes, I had a very interesting thing. There was a Chinese doctor visiting us from Johor in Singapore a few years ago, and he wanted to go and buy some jewelry for his wife at Musket shop. And we went in, and there was a very nice girl, serving girl, woman of my age. And all of a sudden we looked at each other, and we were sort of completely stunned. And I hadn't seen her since those days. And we discovered each other. There was another girl whom I met in London. Actually, I went to a vegetarian restaurant, which has a very beautiful health store. And as I walked past, I heard a rather very strong Hungarian accent in English saying, "How much is this coconut?" So I turned around. I thought I recognized that accent.
They all do.
No, it was that girl whom I saw the last time in Reichenbach, in the upper Schlesien where we were. And in fact, she was one of the girls who was taken to Sweden. She was in a very, very bad state, and she was taken to Sweden to hospital.
We have another girl in Seattle, Celia Epkin, who was also. What kind of? Your husband is an
Anesthesiologist.
And what? He's attached to some hospital in Tel Aviv.
Naaser, to the Itlog
And is
Hospital and Medical School in Tel Aviv.
Has he been called to the University of Washington?
No, he's doing sort of sabbatical. He was invited by Professor Bonica.
Okay, I think that's it. That's good.